let me just start by saying that we're all talking in our minds all the time, right? Yeah. I mean, all of us are just constantly inside your head, you're talking. And when it comes to when we start to think about people, we are often drawing conclusions in our heads about people. We are making assumptions in our heads. We're deciding what their real motives are. We know what they really think. We know why they did that. I mean, in our heads, we're always talking, right? And let me show you how this works, because it affects our behavior. For example, and this is what happened to me, sweet little me, who's usually very calm and everything. I was driving down the road, and this car just came basically to a stop, like on the road in front of me, for no reason whatsoever. And I found myself saying, "You idiot!" Now, I mean, not like they couldn't hear me, but this is not typical for me, because I always tell my husband, "You shouldn't say that," because he says that when I say anyway. And I said, "You idiot!" And I was like tensed up, and I had these bad thoughts, and then I thought, "What am I doing?" And so I changed my thought in my head to, "I bet you there's a reason they stopped. They're probably lost." Wouldn't you know it? Within seconds, just a new calmness came over me, and I was ready to get outside and say, like, "Hey, do you need help? Where are you lost? Can I help you?" Like a compassionate heart. And all it was just a switch in a little phrase that I was saying inside my head about the situation. How does this work with your husband? Well, for instance, maybe your husband comes home and he's sharp with the kids or with you, and you say something in your head like, "He's such a jerk." And your body gets all tense, and you're cold as ice, and you can feel like the ice maiden has now entered the room, and you're distant, and you might even tell him out loud, "You are such a jerk." That could happen because it all started right here with a little thought in your head. But what if you managed that thought in your head, and you said something like, in your head, like, "I bet you there's a reason he did that. I bet you he had something really stressful happen at work." And it would just calm you down, physically, emotionally, mentally, and maybe you'd just let it go for that moment and come back, circle around a little bit later after he's eaten and sat for a few minutes and said, "Hey, what's happened at work today? Tell me about your day." And you might have encountered, "Okay, this is what happened," and see how just that little shift in your thinking. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is managing our thoughts to improve our relationships, and it's Bible-based. So Bible principle number 1, stop making negative judgments and assumptions about others. Stop making negative judgments and assumptions about others. Because how would you like it if people were always assuming and assigning negative emotions, negative motives to everything you do? We wouldn't like that very much. We'd be like horrified, like, "I can't believe that you came to that conclusion about me," right? But we do the same thing to everybody else. Jesus tells us in Matthew 7, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." So let's just abide by principle number 1, and we could improve our relationships right there if we just stopped assigning negative motives, stop jumping to negative conclusions about everything. Bible principle number 2, realize that the words you speak, even inside your head, are super powerful. They're just super powerful. The things, I mean, look at what I did in my head with that driver. I mean, I was all tense. I called him an idiot because I just immediately assumed that he was an idiot. Instead of probably that he was lost, my husband, I'm jumping to this negative conclusion. It causes me to be this ice maiden with him, and it's like, wait a minute, these words that I'm thinking inside my head are super powerful. The words influence our hearts, and they can either bring healing or strain to relationships. Proverbs 18:21, we've mentioned it so many times in here, but it's just so true. The tongue has the power of life and death. And I think really it's our words. Whether it's, coming out of your mouth or the words you're thinking in your head, it's just super powerful. It brings life or death. Proverbs 16:24 says, "Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones." And then Bible 3, immediately stop yourself the minute you start jumping to negative conclusions and judgments about someone, and redirect your thoughts to be gracious like Christ. Redirect your thoughts to be gracious like Christ. 1 Corinthians 2:16 says, if we're believers, we're supposed to have the mind of Christ. And how does the Lord describe himself? He says several times in Psalms, including Psalm 103, the Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. And here's the bonus. When you start thinking more gracious, compassionate thoughts about everyone you encounter, all of your relationships will improve. With your boss, with your coworkers, with your husband, with your mother-in-law, with the driver on the road, all of your relationships will improve. Again, gracious thoughts are going to improve all your relationships. Gracious thoughts are going to help you be a better reflection of Christ. But that doesn't mean that you should allow yourself to be someone's verbal punching bag or an excessive people pleaser just to keep everybody happy, or that you're supposed to be a doormat or anything like that. We need to make requests for change and set boundaries with a sense of compassion and gracious words that communicate the best assumptions about that person. So you can set boundaries, but even then, let's approach this in our thought life with the best assumptions about that person. I want to kind of do like a compare and contrast little thing here, for example. So we can either give into, judgmental thoughts and vent those judgmental thoughts, or we can pause and assume the best about the person, which is going to lead to gracious healing words. So let's say your husband hurls some really mean words at you or something like that. And you can say, "You're such a jerk. I hate you. I should have never married you. You're a terrible human being." You get, all these thoughts that are in your head, can eventually come out. And how is that going to work? I mean, what is how is this going to improve your relationship? Or he could have done the exact same thing. He could have hurled some mean words, unkind words at you, and you could say in your head and then come out of your mouth, "I know you probably had a really hard day, and that you would never intentionally hurt me, but when you call me those names, it does hurt me, so I'm asking you not to say that again." Already, look at the difference. "You're such a jerk. I hate you. I can't believe you treat me like you." How is that going to work versus, "I know you probably had a really hard day, but I don't let anyone say that to me, so please don't say that again." Night and day difference, right? How is he going to respond to the first one? Not very well. The war is on now. The second one, you've assumed the best. You probably had a hard day. You're actually voicing compassion, and he feels like maybe you partly understand, but you're setting a little boundary there as well. Like, "But please don't say that word to me again," or whatever. Let's say the common thing that you find your husband looking at pornography. Super, super common, and even for guys who've been clean of pornography for years, sometimes there'll be a slip up and it's like, "Oh my gosh, you're heartbroken, you just discovered this." You could say, "You make me sick." This could be a response that you're thinking in your head and it just comes out of your mouth, that, "You only care about making love to yourself." Whatever thing, and this is not going to work out very well if that's what comes out of your mouth, because this is what you're thinking in your head. But what if you assign the most gracious, explanation? You say, "I know you love me," as the first thing that comes out of your mouth. "I know you love me, but when you look at pornography, I feel like I'm not good enough for you. So I'm asking you to stop looking at pornography and to do whatever it takes to get clean of this, to get rid of this problem. So let's sit down and brainstorm together what needs to happen." Night and day difference, right?